how do you break through the noise of all the marketing, all the campaign stuff, all the things that voters hear, and talk to them about water when they're kind of oftentimes most concerned with what's happening today, right? They're in traffic, they're mad about traffic, or they see wildfires. That's what's in front of them. How do you break through the noise of the things that are happening today and have them think prospectively about water? I want to follow up real quick because you mentioned coalition. You talked about MAGA Republicans in a Democratic, clearly Democratic state. Most people in this room still think Orange County is a Republican county, but we're very purple. And we kind of very much look at the world as right and left, Democrat and Republican, Fox News, MSNBC. That's just how we see it, or we're told to see it. I don't think most people in this room necessarily see it that way, but is that really a thing in California? You need to talk to Republicans in California. You need to build a coalition that's outside of just progressive Democrats, and and you say you can do that and have impact. So, Jim, from the moment you get that call from someone who's got a little twinkle in their eye of a statewide ballot measure, a bond measure, to actually seeing that ballot book from the Secretary of State in 90 seconds or less, tell us what all happens there. And then from there, let's actually talk about the lawyer work that you get paid for. So they're out there, they're raising money, but you write this thing, you write this ballot measure. It's very prescribed language, and you deliver it to the secretary, or to the, I guess, Secretary of State, and they give it to the Attorney General. And like, what does that all look like? So there's like 100+ elected officials in this room, and some of them have been sued or sued someone when it comes to their ballot title or ballot statement. But take us into that courtroom for a minute, because you've done this before. You've had a client that's been sued, or you've pursued something, and you're in front of the judge and you're arguing, and it's fairly clear in the election code what you're allowed to say and what you're not. But sometimes things happen in that courtroom. What is that like? And is it just because of the judge, or is it what happens in that room when you get your kind of sneaky little language in there, or you get them to get rid of their sneaky little language? All right, so David, let's get into the nitty gritty of the ballot measure itself. It's on the ballot. It's the signature. Well, the ballot measure has been written, and the campaign comes to you and says, we want to get this on the ballot. You've got to go out and help them collect hundreds of thousands of signatures, maybe 700, maybe 800,000. And the reason, by the way, is not because there's some subjectivity to that. It's because you collect a signature, but somebody else might collect that signature. There's duplication. Also, people coming out of the supermarket might not know whether they're registered to vote or not. So there's a whole lot of reasons why you need to get extra, because you don't want to go through all that effort and then not have the signatures you need. But Jim mentioned different dollar amounts. Why is that the case? Right? Is it because when there's one signature gathering effort, it's a certain high number, but if there's a medium number, it's kind of like, oh, they can carry multiples, or if there's a lot, you've got to break through and have them carry yours. And what does that process look like of getting the signatures? And then then he says the registrars verify them. There's 58 of those. What does that process look like before you actually have the Secretary of State saying you're on the ballot? So for both of you, I mean, we know there's two routes. If you go through the legislature, I think everybody probably expects you're going to get, let's say, a legislator or a coalition of legislators to sponsor it. They put it before their colleagues. It's very unlikely that something that this room comes up with would be what gets on the ballot, because there's a lot of other things that people want to add on to that. To talk about that process a little bit? Okay, before we get to maybe how everyone in this room can be much more participatory in this process, David, I want to kind of understand what happens next. So it's on the ballot. Somehow you've raised the $15 million, or you've convinced legislators to put it on there. It has some semblance of what you are trying to accomplish by the time it gets on the ballot. And what does that campaign look like? I mean, you need how many millions, and who's spending it, and what are they spending it on? So the people in this room can't will it to be successful, is what you're saying. Because I mean, I think there's some idea that if I put, if I get enough lawn signs and if I talk to enough of my friends and if I, send enough emails to my neighbors and I take, the flyer I print out on my printer and I bring it door to door, that I can have an impact. You're saying I can't have an impact. When we talk about mass communication, there's probably about a third of the people in this room who still have cable. Well, actually, in this room is probably about 70% of the people have cable. And and but like in California, it's pretty small numbers, maybe a third or so. You know probably better than I do. So you can buy cable TV, you can buy broadcast TV. You were talking about buying social media. What are those different places that you actually buy the ads? You talk about different messages, maybe to different communities, different groups. What about language? Everybody in California speaks, every voter in California speaks English to some large extent, but why? So why would I bother talking to people in Chinese, in Spanish, in Korean, in any particular place? Yeah. So there are billions of dollars in this room, controlled in this room, public agencies. Jim, there's a wash with money, and how can they spend that money, right? You already said that they could do some research, they can hire lawyers, but like this is going to cost 15 million to get signatures and $25 million to run a statewide campaign. Like, can they just write a check?
No. And
Damn.
so
I was trying, guys. I was trying. So what I took out of that is they can hire me and they can hire you. They can't hire David. Okay, all right. Just want to make sure. Very good. So let's make sure everybody understands though and gets clarification. If what we're saying is that Darcy, when she's on the dais, cannot say, as an agency, we want the voters to vote yes. But Dennis, when he's at a press conference sponsored by some PAC, can absolutely say vote yes. If you're not on the dais, if you're not representing or you're not staff can't necessarily do it unless they're volunteering somewhere else. What does that look like? Can I still, as an elected official, say that I want you to vote yes? All right, so this brings us really to the place where we get to where does this money come from, right? We already know they can't write the checks beyond you and me. So when there's billions of dollars in a place like this with these agencies, they spend hundreds of millions of dollars, billions of dollars perhaps, and those dollars are spent with contractors and lawyers and pollsters and people who lay pipe and do all the things that build infrastructure. Those people get millions of dollars for that work. They might be likely suspects for fundraising. To tell us how that happens, Jim. Like, how do they go out there and ask those people to put money in? We talked earlier about the example of school bonds, of who funds school bonds. How does that work? Can they just go and say, "Hey, give me some money," and you give 100,000, you give 100,000? How does that work? I want to save a minute or two for questions, but I want to make sure everybody can maybe get some more comfort around this, though, Jim. Where's Mark Boutier? Is Mark still in the room? So, there's Mark. There he is. So I just want to make sure that if one of these directors on their own time went over to Mark and said, "Hey, Mark, I need $250,000 for this water bond," and Mark wanted to be generous and he wasn't being compelled to, he could write that $250,000 check with the promise of nothing coming back his way, but with the hope that put in a competitive bid, he would get some business, and there would be a lot of that business to go around that he could potentially bid on. Good?
That's exactly the process.
All right. So anybody feel free to hit up Mark. And nobody goes to jail for that, right?
No promises.
Okay. On a quick question, David, newspapers. Like if a bomb, if everybody got food poisoning, let's say in this room, like no one would read a newspaper in California tomorrow. Like this is the last vestige of newspaper readers, like there is. Do newspaper editorial boards matter anymore? Okay, we got a few minutes. Let's get some questions from the audience for our very smart panelists. Yes, sir. Let's go from a legal standpoint first. Well, that's something everybody can do tomorrow, right? Get your list of all your vendors together and start meeting with them and talking to them about whether they're interested in being supportive. It's a kind of coalition that you could work on, couldn't you? David, create an ad right here, right now. Like, use your creative genius, and we're trying to sell like a pipeline. We're trying to sell a water treatment plant. We're trying to sell a reservoir. What's the imagery? How do we make that sexy? So it's not just about this is good, this will help us. Americans love a good fight. It could be bring in the fight, bring in the us versus them, and make people choose a side. Well, thank you both. I will say that we talked mostly about statewide here. There's definitely opportunities on a local basis to do this in your own agencies, and it just kind of happens on a micro scale. And it might not be a bond, it could be something else, but communicating and understanding what your residents and voters think and communicating back to them in a way that's meaningful is really important, even if it's just on the local level. Thank you very much, both of you.